The Spanish, Irish, and Norwegian governments to now announced today that they would recognize a Palestinian state, saying there would be no end to conflict in the Middle East without it. Israel denounced the move as giving aid to its enemy, Hamas. In their coordinated appeal, the leaders of the three countries emphasized that peace could only come through a two-state solution. So, a Palestinian state needed to exist. Now, the United States has said recognition of such a state is premature and must be the result of direct negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians. Two of the most prominent figures in the Georgia criminal case against former President Donald Trump easily won their respective elections on Tuesday. Now, in their first appearance on the ballot since the inception of the high profile election interference case, Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis defeated her challenger, Christian Y. Smith. And Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee, who is presiding over the election case, was also elected to his first full term since being appointed to the court last year. And nearly 50 House Democrats called on Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito to recuse himself from January 6 related cases, questioning whether the jurors could be impartial after an upside down flag flew at his home in the weeks after the U.S. Capitol attack in 2021. Representative Hank Johnson, the ranking Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee, and 44 other lawmakers signed a letter to Alito noting that the upside down flag, long used as a sign of distress, especially by the U.S. military, has become a symbol of the Stop the Steal movement that falsely claims the 2020 election was stolen from Donald Trump. Key Republican senators also sharply criticized Alito after news reports showed the upside down flag flying outside of his home in 2021. And if it wasn't enough to have that one flag flying, last summer, 2 years after that upside down American flag was flown outside the home of Alito, another provocative symbol was displayed at his vacation home in New Jersey. This time, it was the Appeal to Heaven flag, which, like the inverted U.S. flag, was carried by rioters at the Capitol on January 6, 2021. Now, this is also known as the pine tree flag. It dates back to the Revolutionary War, but largely fell into obscurity until recent years and is now a symbol of support for former President Donald Trump. For a religious strand of the Stop the Steal campaign and for a push to remake American government in Christian terms. And Sean Diddy Combs is back in the news. He has been accused of sexual assault in a new lawsuit filed yesterday by Crystal McKinney, a former model and winner of MTV's 1998 Model Mission Competition show. According to this complaint that was filed in New York and obtained by CNN, McKinney claims that she was drugged and sexually assaulted in 2003 by Combs following a men's fashion week event in New York City. Bad Boy Records, John Clothing LLC, and Universal Music Group were also named as defendants in the lawsuit. And UCLA's Chancellor Gene Block will testify before a Republican-led House committee on Thursday, where he is expected to face aggressive questioning about anti-Semitism on UCLA's campus and how a pro-Palestinian encampment ended in violence. Now, Chancellor Block's appearance comes as UCLA, among one of the nation's most prestigious public universities, has been roiled by months of tense protest over the Israel and Hamas war, including a violent mob attack 3 weeks ago of that pro-Palestinian encampment. And in her first public appearance since she dropped her Republican presidential bid in March, Nikki Haley, you remember her, the former United Nations ambassador? Well, she's making news today by saying that she would vote for former President Donald Trump. Surprise, surprise. This is Nikki's statement, although she did stop short of an official endorsement. She was speaking at the Hudson Institute in D.C., a conservative think tank. She delivered a scathing critique of Biden, and you will recall not so long ago, she was issuing scathing critiques of Trump. But yet she now says she's ready to bury the hatchet and vote for Donald J. Trump. This is the news, and this is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. In this hour, to help me break down today's news, is NAACP Image Award winning journalist and author Jared Hill. His book, Historically Black Phrases, is a must read. And make sure you pick up your copy. It's sold where all books can be found. Dr. Niambi Carter's here. She's also an author, and she happens to be a professor at the University of Maryland. Glad to be in conversation with both of them today. And in hour two, you know what we do? We go deep. We dig behind those headlines, I should say. We bring you those stories that people are talking about. And today we're going to continue our coverage of Sean P. Diddy Combs. Yesterday we talked about that horrific video that came out on Friday showing Sean Combs beating, kicking, assaulting Cassie Ventura in that hotel lobby, the Intercontinental in Los Angeles, almost a decade ago. Today we're going to be talking with Los Angeles County a veteran Los Angeles County prosecutor about LA County District Attorney's Office's statement that Sean P. Diddy Combs will not face any criminal charges as a result of the criminal activity we witnessed on that videotape. I'm going to talk to Bobby Grace. He's a regular legal contributor here about why aren't there charges going to be filed against Sean Combs in that case, and might he face some other criminal liability? We know there's a federal investigation that's taking place. We know Homeland Security raided his home several weeks ago. So we're going to talk about the criminal legal jeopardy that Sean Combs may be in. And also joining us in that hour is Dr. Judy Ho. She's a licensed psychologist, because we keep talking about victims. Don't want to just talk about Sean Diddy Combs and his predatory behavior, but also want to center victims of domestic violence and make sure we are having and learning a better understanding about why victims don't often report their abusers, why it takes them many, many years in some cases, like in the case of Cassie Ventura, to come forward and even tell their stories. And again, what can we do as a society to make sure that we are keeping domestic violence at an all-time low, and that we are providing support for anyone, woman or man, that finds themselves the victim of domestic violence. So make sure you stick around for hour two. But before bring on my guests, here's what I'm thinking about in real time. You know, Donald Trump is dominating the news in such a significant way. Obviously, every time he's in that Manhattan courthouse, he comes outside on the courtroom steps and he makes some kind of statement. His press conferences, his rallies are all covered pretty much from wall to wall, 7, 8, 9 stories about him every day in the mainstream press. You would think that he's the president. Well, he is not the president. Joe Biden is the president. Kamala Harris is the vice president. And they are not just sitting on their thumbs, sitting on their hands, doing nothing. It may appear that way because Donald Trump just sucks up all the energy in the room. But Biden has been very, very busy working on something that I think the Democrats don't pay nearly enough attention to, and that is the appointment of federal judges. Now, Republicans have always had a very intense, very methodical plan to ensure that they, when they have a Republican president in office, that they pack those federal courts. And as a result, that's why Judge Eileen Cannon, who was appointed under Donald Trump, is completely fooling around, messing up the lane, and showing favoritism to Donald Trump in that classified documents case in Florida. I've shared with you on many occasions that I sat on a committee that was set up to interview prospective judges when Kamala Harris was the senator for the state of California. And Donald Trump was the president at that time. So it wasn't as if we were going to really get any of our the candidates we thought to be qualified appointed, but we still had to interview the candidates that the Republicans were putting forth for the state of California. And I can tell you with firsthand knowledge, many of those candidates were ill-equipped to be federal court judges. Many of them had very little courtroom experience. They were very much committed to a certain Republican ideology that, begged the question about whether they could be objective as judges. Most of them had been members of the Heritage, Foundation and other very conservative nonprofit. So they just were a certain breed of lawyers who Donald Trump made a point to appoint to the federal bench. And many of these individuals are young, which means they will be on these benches for the duration of their lives, because an appointment is a tenured position, can't get fired. Whether it's the Supreme Court or the appellate court at the federal level or the district court, it is a lifetime appointment, which is why it is so important. And in my opinion, Democrats have not paid nearly enough attention to the appointment of federal judges, except Joe Biden is. And Joe Biden just reached his 200th federal judge appointment today. And this is highlights a sharp contrast with Donald Trump. Although Donald Trump, by the time he was out of office, had appointed 234 judges, more than Biden. Biden still has a chance to catch up to that 234 number. But what's significant is the difference in these judges. Donald Trump's judges, 65% are white men. Yes, white men. Whereas Joe Biden has appointed a majority of the judges appointed by Joe Biden are people of color. Joe Biden has appointed more women of color to the federal bench than any other judge in the history of this country. He has tended again to look for judges of color. He's also broken the mold by not just appointing corporate lawyers, white male corporate lawyers. Joe Biden has been appointing civil rights lawyers like myself. He's been appointing labor lawyers and even public defenders. Now, you may say, what's the big deal about that? It's a real big deal, because traditionally, to get a federal judgeship, to get that appointment, you had to be a lawyer from a handful of top law schools, and traditionally that meant you were a white male, and you traditionally had gone to work for some big corporate law firm, or maybe worked in-house for some big corporation, and then you would move on to the federal bench with all of your conservative ideologies, going right with you. But Joe Biden broke that mold and says, no, we need diversity, not just more females, not just more Blacks and Asians and Latinos, but we also need different types of lawyers who've had different experiences, like public defenders, like civil rights lawyers. So kudos to Joe Biden in reaching his 200th lawyer appointment today to the federal bench. Kudos to his administration for being focused on the appointment of federal judges and for having the courage to step up and appoint more Black women to the bench than any other president in our history. So when you see all this coverage of Trump and think that Joe Biden isn't doing anything, or you have someone say that ridiculous statement that people often say, well, Biden and Harris aren't doing anything, please tell them that you watch and listen to Areva Martin in real time, and that I brought the receipts today that show definitively that Joe Biden has done something significant and something that will inure to the benefit of millions and millions of Americans, and something that speaks to his commitment to diversity, his commitment to women, and his commitment to Black folks. When we come forward, more of today's breaking and trending news right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, Tavis Smiley here. We're getting closer to June 18th, and time is running out for you to register to join us for our historic symposium live on C-SPAN, Tuesday, June 18th, 4 to 7 p.m. at the California Science Center in Exposition Park. Admission is free, but you must register at KBLA1580.com right now if you want to be in the audience when the nation will see, for the first time ever, a stage full of brilliant Black folk talking about the urgency of now. Climate justice, climate equity, climate resilience. It's all going down. Well, it's actually all going up. Tuesday, June 18th, 4 to 7 p.m., live from the California Science Center in Exposition Park. Again, admission is free, but we're filling up fast. So if I were you, I would log on right now to KBLA1580.com to reserve your seat. Caring about the climate, caring about the community. We're KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Ew, Gotta get rid of this old Backstreet Boys t-shirt.
Tell me why.
Because it stinks, boys.
Tell me why.
I've washed it so many times, but the odor won't come out.
Tell me why.
No, you tell me why I can't get rid of this odor.
Have you tried Downy Rinse and Refresh? It doesn't just cover up odors, it helps remove them.
Wow, it worked, guys.
Yeah.
Downy Rinse and Refresh removes more odor in one wash than the leading value detergent in 3 washes. Find it wherever you buy laundry products.
The thing no one tells you about periods is that your flow changes every day, and so should your tampon size. Tampax has 5 absorbencies to match your changing flow. If it hurts to remove, go down a size. If it leaks, go up a size. Only Tampax has a leak guard braid to help give you up to 100% leak and odor-free protection. All-day comfort and protection for under $5 a month. Based on average U.S. consumer usage at manufacturer's suggested price. However, pricing is at the sole discretion of the retailer. Excludes 8.
My mom has taken up going to the park to practice yoga.
My dad's going to a club, but not a book club, a salsa club.
Finding new hobbies comes with age.
My mom has started getting lost and not knowing where she's going.
Becoming lost or disoriented doesn't. Confusion with time or place may be a sign of Alzheimer's. An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Kind of like choosing Derek Jeter as the pinch hitter for your baseball team.
Jeter, you're in. We need a home run.
I'll give it a try. I've swung a bat once or twice.
That's out of here. Yep, even easier than that. With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/.
In this hour, Jared Hill is here as well as Dr. Niambi Carter, and we're going to be breaking down today's news. And there is a lot of news today. So welcome back to the show, Jared and Dr. Carter. Let's start with you, Jared and Nikki Haley. Nobody's surprised that Nikki Haley is voting for Donald Trump. It was always a question of when she would break her silence and, kiss the ring. And apparently today was the day. So they're making some kind of news out of the fact that she didn't give him an official endorsement, but she was pretty unequivocal in her statement that she's going to vote for Donald Trump. So you have to ask the question in these tough campaigns, Ron DeSantis, I should say, and now Nikki Haley, who were both very critical of Donald Trump, says, doesn't matter. We said he was unfit to be the president, but we're going to vote for him anyhow. Any surprises on your part from what Nikki Haley has stated today?
I remember kind of feeling like it would be really hard for these candidates to go back and support him and endorse him because they've literally campaigned against him and had all of the things to say about him the later they got into the campaign. But of course they were going to go back, right? Of course they were going to go and support him in the end. And it's one of those things of being frustrated to see it happening yet again. And also seeing it happen when it doesn't have to, right? Like as we watch the Supreme Court and wondering how they're going to be ruling, as we're watching Judge Cannon, as you spoke about earlier, as we're seeing these different folks make these decisions that are going to have such enormous impact on the possibilities for this country, I just keep thinking to myself, but you also don't have to make that choice, but they all continue to do so.
You're so right, Jared. And we've seen some high profile individuals in the Republican Party, like Paul Ryan, who have come out, Dr. Carter, to say they're not going to vote for Donald Trump, said they're going to write in another candidate or just not vote for the president at all. So it's not as if your only choice is Trump or Biden, because Paul Ryan and some other high-profile Republicans are saying no to Donald Trump. And I kind of thought Nikki Haley might be a no vote. So I guess I'll ask you the same question I asked Jared. Are you surprised that she is, in fact, a yes vote?
No, I mean, I think at this point, I think she's hoping to be on the ticket, quite frankly, or in a cabinet position or some other such thing. I mean, she's worked with the Trump administration before. So even though she was a never Trumper in this particular iteration of her political career, she was not a never Trumper before. And so I'm not surprised. I mean, it was pretty clear that she was not going to make it across the finish line, but she hung in there long enough. right? To give, I guess, Trump a little bit of trouble. I think in Maryland, she was able to peel off like 20% of the vote in the primary. So it wasn't like she was a non-factor, but it was still not enough for her to be the presumptive nominee. I mean, that's Donald Trump at this point. So I think what she was hoping, at least, was to have enough votes, enough influence to have Trump pull her into his campaign and fold her into whatever he's doing. But I'm not surprised. I mean, Nikki Haley has never been one to be particularly convicted about much of anything. We saw how quickly, for example, I mean, some people like, oh, it's great. She brought down the Confederate flag, but look what it took to get her there. I mean, it wasn't like she did it because she, I think, really believed that the Confederate flag was detrimental. But you had the incident at the church with all those poor Black people dying at Ebenezer. And then it's like, okay, I guess we'll take it down. But it's not like Nikki Haley has been known to have a strong political voice in any real sense. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I think you're right. She probably is angling to be the number 2 on the ticket or to go into some kind of cabinet position. And we've seen, from Mitt Romney to others, Lindsey Graham comes to mind, folks who have been critical of Trump, and then to be close to the seat of power, pretty much saying or doing whatever is necessary so they can be in the fold. Jared, Gene Block from UCLA, he's headed to that very, very hostile GOP, led education committee tomorrow. Now he's actually retiring pretty soon, so maybe he goes there and takes this attitude like I can say or do whatever because it won't matter. You can call for my resignation because that'll be futile since I'm retiring anyhow. But what's coming, if anything, out of these hearings? Like, what is the GOP accomplishing by parading these university presidents before them, drilling them, trying to get their viral got you moment? Do you think it's having any impact on what's happening on these campuses around protests?
I think what we're seeing happening in these kinds of scenarios is very similar to what I think we're seeing in the Trump trial, where we're seeing we saw the witness go up on the stand yesterday, and it was like, why would you put that person on the stand, right? And you think like, oh, they're doing this for Donald Trump, right? They're doing this so that they can show their fealty to him, they can show their loyalty to him, they can make sure that people understand where they are on the politics of all of these different things. This case I haven't been as read in on, but as I see these things continue to happen, it's like, I can't really see it as anything else because there's not any work that's getting done, right? There's not any movement that's being made. There's not anything that's really being improved for students. And so when you continue to see it happen, you know exactly what they're trying to do. And even as we're talking about Nikki Haley, right? Trying to make a play to be able to play toward Trump, trying to make sure that if and when he becomes president, that everyone is in line to be online, right? And I think that even with Nikki Haley, as we were wrapping up that point earlier, I was thinking about how many of these people align themselves with him to be able to be someone that they would never vote for, right? I think about Vivek Ramaswamy in those situations, and now they have told you that they won't vote for you, right? They have told you to your face. And so all of these things, where we're seeing these things happening in Congress, and we're seeing these things happening in court, and all of them very different places, it's always about wanting to make sure that you're demonstrating to Trump how you are aligned on the politics of whatever his politics are today, because we've seen birth control today change twice already. So it's an alarming thing to keep watching and seeing more and more people continue to do it.
I do want to ask you, Jared, I know you are a USC professor and student, or you have been a student at a certain point in time. What's happening on that campus? Because they were in a hot seat not so long ago, and in fact, canceled one of their main graduations because of the protests that were happening on the campus. Do you have a sense about what's going on at USC at this moment?
I don't have a whole lot to report because I haven't been teaching at USC this semester, but I do know that our commencement exercises were reduced. I know that many of my students didn't get what they were expecting. And that situation, I know that after we saw the valedictorian pulled and all that, we did see that valedictorian get that standing ovation, which really was an overwhelming show of support from the student body and from the parents and everyone that was there to support her in that moment. So we've seen those kinds of things, but I can't give you some inside perspective there because I ain't been over there. So I haven't been there this semester.
Well, what about you, Dr. Carter? You were on a college campus. Did your campus have, the level of protest that we've seen across the nation? And do you have a sense about kind of, is the story dying out? Because kids are taking finals, they're going through graduations, and many of them are leaving for the summer.
Well, we certainly had protests. There were kind of protests on GW's campus that were across campus protests, but we also had our own protests at the University of Maryland. And I would say ours were probably a tamer affair, in part because the administration was very clear about staying away from the protests. There was an increased police presence, but more so that there would not necessarily be people off the campus. I mean, we have a pretty open campus. So I think they wanted to prevent people who were not affiliated with the university from being there, potentially harming students. But there were no students being led away. There were no people being arrested. And I think, part of why there was such a strong reaction by students, faculty, and staff were that if you would have just let this continue, and allowed students to exercise their constitutional right, this probably would have died down on its own, because people are going home. People do have internships. And I'm not saying our students aren't committed and won't be continuing to protest in their home cities, but there weren't many students that I heard were willing to stay on campus just for their protests. Students were exhausted, students were tired. So I didn't get any sense that the students were actually the drivers of the tensions that were ramping up on campus. It was really university presidents who were trying to kowtow to the political sentiment of the time. And all of this, again, is a ruse to really undermine education, higher education.
Yeah, I need you to hold that thought for me, Dr. Carter. We've got to go to break. When we come forward, we're going to continue that conversation. Also talk about this bodyguard for Sean Diddy Combs, who said he witnessed him use violence against one of his baby's mothers. So when we come forward right here on KBLA Talk 1580, stay with us.
Break time. More of Areva Martin in real time when we come forward.
I'm Tyreek Wynn. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. The Minnesota Republican Party is endorsing a former NBA player who wants to become a U.S. Senator. Royce White, who's black, won the party's endorsement at the state convention in St. Paul over the weekend. White received 67% of the votes from delegates, winning on the first ballot. All eyes are on Georgia after Fulton County DA Fonnie Willis won her Democratic primary election. Willis is handling the election interference case against former President Trump. The judge overseeing the Trump case, Scott McAfee, also won his race. The Maryland-based Caucus of African-American Leaders have passed a resolution asking officials to rename the Frederick C. Malkus Jr. Bridge in Cambridge because it resisted desegregation in Maryland in the 1960s and 70s. On Monday night, a delegation from the group called Cambridge City Council to introduce a resolution to rename the bridge after late civil rights activist Gloria Richardson. That's the latest. I'm Tyreek Wynn on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
Over in Santa Monica, expect an hour and a half worth of heavy traffic flow on the 10 East between 20th Street and the 5-101 interchange. Your drive through Culver City is over an hour and a half on the 405 North between Highway 90 and Nordhoff Street. As you continue southbound onto the 405 through Torrance, right lane is blocked with an accident currently just before Crenshaw Boulevard, with over an hour and 5 minutes of heavy traffic from Wilshire Boulevard. Hollywood's traffic flow continues to run heavy now on the 101 South between Hollywood Boulevard and the 10th 7th Street interchange over 40 minutes. And a 35 to 40 minute backup in Anaheim continues on the 91 East between Highway 57 and Gibson Canyon Road.
Mattress Firm's Memorial Day sale is here. Get a Sleepy's Queen mattress at the lowest price ever, just $89.99. This deal ends Tuesday, so don't wait. Visit Mattress Firm and save over 60%. In-store pickup only while supplies last. Find your nearest one today.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Rams are moving their training camp this summer to the campus of Loyola Marymount University. The Rams had trained at UC Irvine since 2016. The Chargers will also have a new home this summer for training camp. They'll be at a new facility in El Segundo. The Chargers decided to move from Costa Mesa. 5 NFL teams will be conducting their training camps this summer in Southern California. In addition to the Chargers and Rams, The Raiders, New Orleans Saints, and Dallas Cowboys will be in the area for training camp. The NBA Western Conference Finals begins tonight in Minneapolis. The Timberwolves versus the Dallas Mavericks. First time for the T-Wolves in the Western Conference Finals in 20 years. The Mavericks were in the conference finals in 2022 against Golden State. They lost to Golden State in 5 games. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on. Pick up the drums.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number and put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement. Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580, where climate is king. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminding you that we keep us safe. Pro Football Hall of Famer and urban peace pioneer Jim Brown believed in just that. So he founded the Amera I Can Foundation for Social Change in 1988, focusing on at-risk and high-risk youth in underserved schools and juvenile detention facilities, as well as adult incarceration and reentry initiatives. The core of the Amera I Can program is its 15-chapter life skills curriculum. Mastery of these skills allows individuals to meet their academic potential, conform their behavior to acceptable societal standards, and improve the quality of their lives by equipping them with what they need to confidently and successfully contribute to society. Today, the foundation is led by its president, Monique Brown, who has been actively involved in the organization for more than 25 years. The Amera I Can Foundation continues its work in memory of its founder, actor, philanthropist, and NFL legend, Jim Brown. To get involved or make a donation, please visit AmeriCanCommunity.partners. That's AmeriCanCommunity.partners. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We are back, and in this hour, Jared Hill, who is an NAACP Image Award winner and author of the book Historically Black Phrases, is joining us, as well as Dr. Niambi Carter. She is an author herself, as well as a professor at the University of Maryland. We are going to talk about this new lawsuit filed by a former model against Sean P. Diddy Combs, bringing the total number of civil lawsuits alleging sexual and physical assault to 7. But before we do so, let's talk about Justice Alito, Professor Carter. I can remember, and I'm sure you can, a time when we did not have Supreme Court justices so brazenly demonstrating their support for one or the other political party. But yet Justice Alito is making it pretty clear that he, I don't know, doesn't maybe even believe that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election, that he is firmly supportive of Donald Trump and perhaps even the insurrectionists by having this inverted flag displayed outside his home. And then news breaking today that that wasn't the only display of his support for Trump and the insurrectionists. There's another flag or symbol at his vacation home. What does that do for the confidence of Americans in our Supreme Court if you have folks acting as brazenly as Alito on one hand and Clarence Thomas on the other?
Well, look, I mean, I think the Supreme Court has been out of control for a while. I think Chief Justice Roberts does not have control of this court. And I think they don't care, in part because they know that there are enough of them, meaning conservative justices on the court, and that there's really no real route to making them more responsible. Congress has made it clear that they don't want to take on the courts. Chief Justice Roberts says we can police ourselves. We can honor our own ethics code, even though there's nothing that's written down for them like there are for lower court judges. And so I think what we're seeing here is the erosion again of our norms, because much of our government runs by norms, not by anything written down in the rules. So yes, it would be nice for Supreme Court justices to look impartial. It would be nice for them to have law degrees, but there's nothing in the Constitution that says they have to. And even when we think about the clause that allows them to be removed from office, which is good behavior, what does that actually mean? Because I think you're being married to a person who is an insurrectionist or an insurrectionist sympathizer is a problem. You telling me that women don't actually need to have control over their own bodies, but your wife gets to hang a flag upside down outside of your house, and you go, well, I couldn't do anything about that. My wife was doing that because she was offended by a neighbor's sign in their yard. I mean, it's a bunch of malarkey, but this is what he's saying. And so I was trying not to cuss, but and so I just think what we're seeing is that the Supreme Court doesn't care. This was the court of last resort. It really is because of the Supreme Court that we can look around and see sort of the strides that African Americans in this country have made, whether you're talking about LGBTQ rights, I mean, just civil rights more generally. It was because of the Supreme Court. And now we can't look to the Supreme Court anymore because you have people like Alito and people like Thomas who are telling you exactly what they plan to do. And what they plan to do is to win by fiat. And I think they're all waiting, hoping that Donald Trump wins again so then they can decide whether they're going to retire or not.
No doubt about it. And age, let's not forget that some of these men are in their 80s, so health problems and all kinds of things.
Has been in since I was 12 or 14. Wow. So that's how long he's been there.
That's a lifetime. So Jared, knowing what's at stake, knowing that we have Alito and Clarence Thomas on the courts, knowing that they are willing to just say that the rules don't apply to them, to just say, to hell with the rules, whether it's flying of the inverted flag or Clarence Thomas accepting luxury trips and private jet rides. Knowing all of that, why do you think folks like Cardi B and Amber Rose, take the positions that they take? And there are others that we could add to that list. Folks who do have large platforms. Of course, they're not political pundits, and you shouldn't be getting political advice from rappers, but we know a lot of people do. They do take what rappers say very seriously, and that may be the only news they get because they follow them on their social media feeds. They're not watching cable news. They're not following political pundits. So do you think those people who are so staunchly anti-Biden or staunchly pro-Trump understand what's at stake and the fact that if Donald Trump wins again, he could get not only hundreds more of these federal court appointments that I talked about early on in the show, but that he could get one or two more Supreme Court justice appointments as well?
I don't think most people understand that. Like, I think most people are really are not really paying enough attention to like the massive implications that come along with the Trump presidency. And when you ask about like Cardi B or Amber Rose or some of the other folks that we've seen leaning in Trump's direction, I just think like, oh, they don't have enough information, right? Because I don't think that they're even, I think about the many things that we don't spend enough time talking about with Donald Trump coming in as president again. Like if we think about Russia and the way that positions Vladimir Putin to be able to do whatever he wants and expand in whatever direction he wants, and how that affects us with the UN and with NATO, how that affects us with North Korea, how it affects us with China, how it affects us with so many other powers that are of great concern to us, right? That's just from like the international policy and like other leaders. That doesn't have anything to do with climate change or the ways that we're affecting the earth or those kinds of things, right? When we think about the judicial system, the way that he's already corrupted the judicial system, if Donald Trump wins or loses this case, but then wins as president, the idea that he's been able to supersede the law, right? The idea that he's gone before the Supreme Court and already suggested that he should be immune from any crimes committed as president. I was tweeting about this or on Threads about this earlier. If we see Donald Trump, who today is talking about wanting to get rid of birth control after already having gotten rid of abortion, and we also see this president who wants to be immune from any crimes committed as president. What happens in less than a year? Because if Donald Trump becomes president, it happens in January of next year. In less than a year, when the majority of Americans who support abortion, who support women's health care, who support queer and trans inclusion, who support many different things, the majority of those Americans start to rise up and say, no, we're not comfortable with this policy that you're enacting. We're not comfortable with this executive order that you just signed on day one. We're not comfortable with these different things. What happens to a president who has the command of the military and law enforcement and a paramilitary that we've already seen rise up, right? What happens when that person is then empowered as a second-term president and is able to then be whoever they want to be, or as they say, a dictator, but only on the first day, right? What happens there? I think about Cardi B and I think about Amber Rose.
A lot of tears. A lot of tears and a lot of remorse. One of the things that's disturbing me, Jared, is talking to people who are thinking in such singular terms. So they're mad at Joe Biden about Gaza. They're mad about Palestine. They're mad about the 35,000 plus people that we all feel empathy for, but they're not, as you said, thinking about all of the implications. And you can't be a one issue voter. No president, whether it's Biden or Obama, Clinton, or any president that you like, Kennedy, no president is going to check every box for every voter. You're not going to agree with everything that president does. But talk about world leaders, Biden and Netanyahu have a very hostile, very adversarial relationship, even though Israel is one of our closest allies in the Middle East. Netanyahu and Donald Trump are the opposite. They're boys. They have a good relationship. So if people are mad at Biden about the way he's dealing with Israel, can you imagine what Trump is going to do in terms of giving carte blanche to Netanyahu to do whatever it is he wants to do, including the complete destruction of Palestine without any pause, without any concerns for humanitarian aid, etc. But it's hard to get people to think beyond, I'm mad today about this, and we should talk about Biden, $7 billion more in student loan relief today. I mean, the things that this president and vice president are doing that don't get a lot of attention or is overshadowed by the constant corporate media reporting on Donald Trump, I think causes people to buy into this narrative that Biden and Harris isn't doing anything, which is why I try to remind people all the time, this appointment of more Black judges than any other president in this nation's history is huge. That's humongous. That's reason enough to vote for Biden, because if he's already appointed 200, that means he'll get another 200 plus in another term. So we literally could start seeing some parity, yes, parity on the federal bench in a way that we haven't seen ever in this country. And that would be worth it alone to have Biden and Harris in office. When we come forward, of course, we got to talk about this new lawsuit by an ex-model, Crystal McKinney, against Sean Diddy Combs. She says he raped her back in 2003 following a men's fashion week event. Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
Every day, millions face challenges that go unseen. Mental health issues affect not just individuals, but the relationships that matter most to them. Over 80% of those suffering with mental health conditions acknowledge the strain on their families. Parents grappling with depression or anxiety find even simple tasks overwhelming. At work, challenges can lead to communication breakdowns, jeopardizing careers and professional relationships. For those caring for loved ones, burnout is a stark reality. The weight of caregiving responsibilities can feel insurmountable. Children, too, feel this impact, often taking on more at home, sacrificing schoolwork and time with friends. But there's hope. Seeking support can change lives. This Mental Health Awareness Month, let's heal the relationships that matter most to us. It's okay to pray and get help. Visit normalizehelp.org for more information and resources.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment. LA's 99 neighborhood councils form the grassroots level of the Los Angeles city government. The system was created to connect LA's diverse communities to City Hall. While neighborhood council board members are volunteers, they are also public officials elected to office by the members of their community. Neighborhood councils advocate on issues like homelessness, housing, land use, emergency preparedness, public safety, parks, transportation, and sustainability. They also provide local expertise on the delivery of city services to their various communities. Neighborhood councils are open to participation by anyone who is a part of the fabric of daily life in said community. This includes those who live, work, or own property or a business. If you are interested in stepping up to join your local neighborhood council, visit www.empowerla.org. That's empowerla.org. It's time to think globally, but act locally. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We're back, and let me make a correction. Crystal McKinney, a former model and winner of MTV's 1998 Model Mission Competition show, alleges in her complaint, her federal lawsuit that she filed yesterday in New York, that Sean Diddy Combs sexually assaulted her. She goes on to say in that complaint that he drugged her and forced her into a bathroom and forced her to perform oral sex on him. She doesn't use the word rape, as I incorrectly stated. She uses the term drugged and sexually assaulted. But Jared, what do you make? This is of this. This is civil suit number 7. Something tells me it won't be the end of lawsuits that we see, but one of Sean's former bodyguards is out in an interview that he did with Piers Morgan, saying that he witnessed Sean Combs use violence against Kim Porter, who is deceased now, but who's the mother of several of his children. So the violence that Sean Combs has been engaged in over the last several decades is pervasive. I mean, that's the only way we can describe it.
I think we should prepare ourselves for a Cosby-like kind of endurance with this story. I met someone today who, in the middle of conversation, brought up an experience that they'd had with Diddy and Cassie. And I was not expecting that. And we had a lengthy conversation about it. And I thought to myself, how many people have stories like these right? Where you saw something
Mhm.
happen, you've been there multiple times, you've seen multiple things happen, you've had it has impacted you in certain kinds of ways. I feel like over the course of decades, there have got to be countless people who have stories about things that have happened with Diddy. Because, like, if you think about one of the big things about Diddy's reputation, it has always been that he throws a crazy party, but also that he's not a nice person, right? And like that's using kind
Mhm.
radio language. But like we've seen him on reality television being not a nice person. We've seen him on social media. We've seen clips and videos of him being not a nice person. And we've heard him talk about being not a nice person, right? And so the idea of those kinds of things happening, those kinds of stories coming out, it seems inevitable. And I also think about like the Diddy that we've seen in the last few years, who's really been focused on love and actually had the nerve to give us a really great album that I can't even play anymore. Like there's so many different elements of like Diddy's story that this onion is going to continue to unfold for a very long time with a lot of different names that we've not even known yet.
Yeah, Nisa Hilton, the mother of his son Justin, Diddy's son Justin, said her heart, Dr. Carter, goes out to Cassie Ventura and said she was triggered. Now, she didn't go on to give us any more details or to tell us what triggered her or what it triggered in her, but clearly she had some kind of experience with him that she could relate to as she watched that horrific video of Cassie Ventura being kicked and assaulted by Diddy. Do you think, like Jared, that this is the tip of the iceberg, and we may see 50 plus women like we saw in Cosby coming forward talking about being abused?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I totally agree with Jared. I mean, the stories about Diddy from the 90s have been floating around for a really long time. And some of the activities that he's known for, the partying, the drinking, the excess, I mean, they're sort of rife for these kinds of claims. And it's not to suggest that because you like to party, this also happens. But I mean, his public persona for a long time has been, we don't stop. And take that. And, he is the guy that was going to get whatever he wanted by any means. And that included women and sometimes very young women, because Cassie was very young when he was with her. Misa Hilton was young. He wasn't much older, but I don't believe she was fully an adult when they started dating. And, Diddy has a penchant for dating people where there are these vast power imbalances. He's not the only one. And I don't think Cassie or these other lawsuits we're going to see are going to be the only one. And I think, all of this talk about change and evolution, etc., will not help him avoid culpability. I don't know a lot about a lot of things, but when your house gets raided on two coasts by the feds, that to me says something is afoot, because they don't do that as a normal course of things. So what the actual charges are going to be, how many more civil lawsuits might come out of this in addition to criminal charges, I think we just better buckle up, because this has been a steady and quick decline since November of 2023 till today. And so, time's up, I guess. He's had a good run.
Yeah, and Jared, you work in the media, you're a journalist. You always have to ask who's advising these people. So we've heard the names of some of Diddy's lawyers who've made statements, but that apology video that he posted on Instagram, did that cause you to say, who's advising him? I mean, I was just like who are the damage control people on the team?
I mean, everything that I've heard about Diddy has made me say, who's advising him, right? And more so, who's not advising him, really, right? But like, one of the interesting things with the Diddy apology, a lot of people were saying like he never spoke her name, he never said Cassie in the apology, and then we saw a headline come up today that says Diddy and Cassie have an agreement; they are not saying each other's names in public. I like to believe that Cassie told her lawyer, and tell him to keep my name out his mouth too. Now, I don't know if that's what happened, but that's what I'm telling myself, right? And so that apology, though, I mean, on one hand, I think like, I'm sure he is sorry, right? Like, I think that a lot of people think it's a fake apology or he's not really sorry. I'm like, no. I'm sure Diddy is sorry, right? I'm sure that apology comes from a very genuine place of deep concern, fear, right? Like,
but wait a
real
minute, Jared. Just a couple of months ago, wait a minute, Jared. A couple of months ago, or 30 days ago or so, he was saying these were sickening allegations, people trying to extort him for money. So are there sickening allegations, or are you sorry because you were at a dark place and you did horrible things?
Well, Areva, I'm sure it's sickening to him.
Say
I'm
that
sure
again.
it's sickening to him what he's about to go through, right? And like the things that people have experienced at his hand, at his cause, as we would say in court, as we're looking at the Trump trials, at the things that we would see that have been at Diddy's, effect, if you will. A lot of things that have been really sickening to a lot of people for a long time. And I think that as we continue to see more and more people coming out, many of them tend to be women coming out to say, like, this thing happened to me and someone needs to be held accountable for it. I think we're going to continue to see more of this. And I worry about, like, Diddy is the one right now, right? But like, how many other people that we know and love that have had a reputation over the years, how many of those other names are going to start popping up? Because like, you and I work in this business. We are all around like various different folks who know these different kinds of things. And we done heard some things, right? We done seen some things. And like, those things are coming to roost.
Yeah. And yes, we have heard some things, we've seen some things, and we know when there's going to be a lot more coming forward. And these drip lawsuits, people are finding their voices. I said the other day on TV that video would encourage other people to come forward, because to the extent anybody was buying that these women were just out to get money, or they were gold diggers, or this was a money grab, that video, just invalidated any of those arguments. And we know that when victims of abuse find that there are other victims who are willing to come forward and talk, there's strength in numbers. You're not the only one out there. And it's a lot harder to discredit, 50 women than, when you're trying to discredit one. You can do that more easily. But when you start getting the kind of numbers that Bill Cosby had accusing him, and now Sean Diddy Combs, I hope it puts to bed once and for all any notion that Black women in particular are making up stories about being abused. Abuse is real. And when it happens, Black women need to be listened to and they need to be believed. We are out of time. Thank you so much, Jared. Thank you so much, Professor Carter, for joining me. We're going to continue this conversation about Sean Diddy Combs, what this means for victims of domestic violence, and what are the legal issues, criminal legal issues that he faces. All of that coming up in hour 2. Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. See you next time.
Appreciate you guys. Absolutely.
Thank you. I'll see you later.
Bye.
All right. Thanks, Jared.